It seems now that the invasion of Venezuela is set for likely the second, possibly the third week of October, meaning just a matter of weeks now. If we are to believe the governor of Puerto Rico and the things that he's said and been quoted as saying, Puerto Rican governor calls for elimination of Venezuelan government, offers to host transition logistics. Hypothetical post-Maduro planning has been discussed at many levels, Governor Rossello claimed. His comments follow Trump's endorsement of a military coup d'etat in Venezuela. This is Ricardo Rossello. We're going to talk about him more in detail, but I'm going to show you what he was quoted as saying, and this is 3 October. This is today. Merida, 3 October. Puerto Rico's governor joined regional voices backing the overthrow of the Venezuelan government Tuesday following the visit of the fugitive ex-mayor of Caracas, Antonio Ledesma, to the U.S. protectorate. Governor Rossello called for the, quote, elimination of President Maduro, who was democratically reelected in May for a second term with 67.7% of the vote. Quote from the governor, what should happen is that the dictatorship should be eliminated. We are defining what will happen afterwards and what steps are to be taken, stated Rossello in a press conference following the meeting with Ledesma. He went on to claim that such steps have already been discussed at many levels and that they point toward, quote, concrete results. As part of their announcements, Rossello invited Venezuela's opposition leaders to a summit, pay attention here, this October 20 and 21, to be held in San Juan, Puerto Rico. What's the summit for? Let's keep reading. Look to establish a commission for the reconstruction of Venezuela, with Puerto Rico acting as, quote-unquote, the headquarters for, quote-unquote, logistical support to a, quote-unquote, transition government in Venezuela. Now, this is him speaking. Quote, we want to be ready for the day after so that Venezuela counts on a government and an ordered and adequate transition so that, that you have friends across the world. Puerto Rico is going to be this connector for the coordination of all this help, Rossello added. In front of the press, the governor signed an agreement which includes hypothetical land, maritime, and air supply corridors to Venezuela. Rossello's comments follow, of course, controversial declarations by our leader and Senator Rubio, Organization of American States Secretary General Luis Almagro, and others which have backed a coup in Venezuela. New York Times recently reported that Washington had held meetings with rebel leaders, and this is basically just describing who Puerto Rico is and what their issues are with statehood. The recent agreement between the Puerto Rican government and Ledesma has already been communicated to Washington as well as to the OAS authorities informed, meaning that now they have all of their little pieces in place. I think that's why the U.S. has waited this long. They don't want to create a situation where there's not people ready to stand in as their dictators. And believe me, this is going to blow up in the United States' face in a way they can't even see yet. For his part, Ledesma, okay, now this is the criminal speaking, told press in San Juan that, quote, a logistical operation will be launched from this Antillean island. Quote, he has previously gone on record calling for a foreign-led, quote-unquote, intervention into Venezuela. From exile, the ex-mayor and longtime anti-government leader heads the Soy Venezuela movement, just one of the numerous fragmented anti-Chavista groups. His movement boycotted the recent presidential elections and publicly opposed opposition groupings, which decided to participate. Now think about this for a minute. They didn't even try. And the people that did want to try, they condemned. And these other groups that wanted to go in there and say, look, we have people in there that would vote for us. This is what they say about this Soy Venezuela movement. Receives substantial criticism from other anti-government forces who claim that operating from Madrid, Paris, or Washington, it is disconnected from the local reality. So clearly this group, this Ledesma criminal-led group, is a construct of Washington. This guy Ledesma is currently fleeing charges of conspiracy and criminal association in Venezuela for his role in the 2014 violent street protests which looked to oust the government through force. He was arrested in 2015, sentence later commuted to house arrest, before dramatically fleeing authorities in November 2017. Now think about this. He was arrested in 2014. Maduro was in charge, right? Arrested in 2015, and his sentence was commuted. Now, what kind of a terrible, horrible, authoritarian dictator would have done such a thing? So when this guy gets out on house arrest, he bolts, and now he's fugitive from justice. Caracas is yet to react to the latest statements from this guy, but I'm sure we're going to hear quite a bit from it. Now, real quick, before we go to a map that I'm going to show you that's probably going to reveal the trap we're walking into, this major trap, I wanted to talk to you about this Mr. Ricardo Rossello. Now, a lot of people in this country like this guy because he was put up next to that mayor of San Juan, I believe, the woman that said that all that crap that went on with Maria. But this guy is a Democrat and part of the New Progressive Party. And if you think that's bad, wait till you hear this guy's background. Okay, now this guy has been trying to push for Puerto Rico to become an official U.S. state. Political career. Wait till you read this. Rossello became involved in politics during the 2008 Puerto Rico gubernatorial election when his father, Pedro Rossello, lost a party primary against eventual governor Luis Fortuno. I guess it must be Rossello. I guess there's an accent over the last O, so however you want to say it, was a Hillary Clinton delegate to the 2008 nominating convention and an Obama delegate to the 2012 convention. In 2008, he had a key role in Clinton's get-out-the-vote efforts for the June 1 Puerto Rico presidential primary, appearing in her final TV ad with several Democratic political leaders, including fellow statehooder Kenneth McClintock and Commonwealth's Robert Prats and Jose A. Hernandez Mayoral. Wrote for El Vocero. And as if all that wasn't bad enough, once he got in as governor, under economic strategies down here, Rossello, I guess, hired investment expert Rothschild & Co. Rothschild & Co.? Really? Wow. Where have I heard that name before? I can't place it. Maybe you guys can help me with that. Yeah, hired investment expert Rothschild & Co., you know, this guy who was the delegate for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, to assist in convincing creditors to take deeper losses on Puerto Rico's debts than they had expected. And you can read about this for yourself. So, just so everybody is clear about who Rossello is here, just so we're clear, that's the guy that was sitting next to our current leader in front of the, there was a big plane behind him, I guess, I forget what it was, that had all of the supplies on it. Now, this is a STRAVA heat map. I've been asked by a lot of people to look over these and to look into stuff with Antarctica, but I think you're going to find this a lot more interesting. Of course, here is Puerto Rico, and here is Caracas. And as you can see, this is why, of course, the Puerto Rico folks would like to invade from here. But strangely enough, Caracas has this little group of islands just to the north of it called Grand Rock. Now, it is one of these lazy little sleepy areas that you might want to vacation at if you wanted to get away from everything. But one thing it is not is a place you exercise. Unless, of course, there's something else going on here. Now, we've seen, of course, these STRAVA heat maps reveal what look like military bases, because a lot of military cats wear these things when they work out and run. Now, as we look in here at Grand Rock, we find something very, very odd. In these little keys and in these little islands, we find these massive heat signatures where there is supposed to be literally nothing out here. I mean, absolutely zero. These are just little tiny abandoned islands. But all of a sudden, they are lighting up like Christmas trees with STRAVA heat. Now, a lot of people have thought, well, gosh, you mean there's U.S. forces? No. No, there's Russian forces here. Because STRAVA is not an American invention. And this particular heat signature literally is out in the middle of the water. So this is more than likely ships or S-300, S-400 emplacements. There's no way out here, this far offshore, you have one of these giant heat signatures. What is somebody out there swimming back and forth? Is that some tourist out there just swimming back and forth every day, gonna just jump in the water and go swim all the way out here? And yeah, tell me another one. And you can see clearly that it's all through here just north of Caracas. And these things only light up red when there's a lot of repeated activity. And like I said, this isn't some place where you would do a lot of working out. And yeah, oddly enough here, you see a very strange pattern over the one tiny, tiny airport that whoever this is running military formation. Because that's exactly what this is. This is taking a runway and maximizing the amount you can run on it instead of just running straight up and down it. We used to do this kind of stuff all the time. And you can see a lot of these heat spots are in places they shouldn't be. So I'll zoom back out again and show you where this is. This particular map takes a little bit of time. There's also another giant heat spot over here as well. And then another one down here. I'm telling you, if they are thinking about coming straight across the sea, they're going to have a nasty surprise waiting for them. You mark my words. This isn't going to be like what the U.S. has been used to. After this last little debacle in Syria where the Israelis got a plane shot down, if they're planning on starting here in Puerto Rico and creating these quote-unquote corridors through here, they got to go right over where I just showed you. And it ain't going to be pleasant. I've said for a long time, I thought when things really kicked off, World War III, this is where it was going to start. I was going to do a whole nother video talking about oil and Venezuela before this dropped. And if I could show you one thing from that, it's this. This is one of the links that I have shown you before. This is worldstopsexports.com, Crude Oil Imports by Country 2017. What I had used this to show you was that even with all of the new oil finds in America, that we're still importing $139.1 billion worth of oil every year. But when you look at this second tab, talking about China, I want to show you something. Now, this is China's top suppliers of oil, basically. Number 14 is the United States, and it shows how much they are up over a certain period of years. Like, for example, Russia, up US 23.7 billion, 20% since from 2013 to 2017. If you go down here to number 14, the United States, up 318,254,300%. That's how much of an increase the U.S. had in their their exports to China during that period. What does that tell you about the reason that they had to knock Venezuela out of the oil markets? And even with that, Venezuela still at 6.6 billion is beating the United States. And this doesn't even include any of the new agreements that have been signed. This is what the U.S. is trying to do. The U.S. got a seat on OPEC with Iraq, which is way up here at number 4. And what they're going to try to do now is take over Venezuela and have that be their second proxy seat on OPEC. But the Russians and the Chinese are not going to stand for this. You mark my words. This is just normal Google Earth. This is what this looks like. And here is the STRAVA heat map. So like I said, there is a nasty surprise waiting just off the northern coast of Caracas for any Puerto Rican invasion. And, while these little red lines aren't flying Russian flags, dollars to donuts. More than likely, that's what we have here. Our S-300, S-400 emplacements or Russian Navy. One of the two. So, we will leave it there. Like, share, subscribe, and I guess I'm going to have to start an ad. Pray for our soldiers. Because soldiers, sailors, airmen, marine, guardsmen, because they're going to be asked to do something now that I couldn't even fathom. Like, share, subscribe.